Okay, in this video we're talking about an example to disaggregate just like you're going to do with the Plan and ACT project. All right. So you said just before when we were talking that you'd want to find the average of the classes and compare that, and also look at A's, B's, C's, and D's. Right. Okay. I would recommend that you take the data, highlight it, copy it, so you can right-click and copy or Control-C, but then put it in a new sheet and do all your work in the new sheet. You may even want to create even more sheets to put information on, but I would have at least the first sheet that you're given, don't mess with it. That way you know that that data is what it was, in case you accidentally delete something or whatnot. Okay? All right, so in sheet 2, we're going to find the averages, which is highlight the cells, put a formula in there, average. Copy it, paste it. Control-C, Control-V, or you can right-click and do those things. Paste, paste. Got the averages. You said you wanted A's, B's, C's. Okay, there we go. And F, and you're going to do that for quizzes and tests. All right, so with that in mind, and you're going to do some things like this, when you highlight things, like if I take this 97 and highlight it down to 94, yeah, you can count that pretty quick. It's 3, right? But if you'll look while it's highlighted, there's a count at the bottom right. Do you see that? Count 3, which means there's 3 A's. B's go from 88 to 86, so 3. C's are from 85 to 77, so 3. And D's are from 76 to 70, so there's the count. At the bottom it says 7. You're going to have a large chunk of data, so that little feature is handy. And F's are anything below that. Count says 4. And then over here, same thing. Count says 6 for A's. Count says 6 for B's. And for C's, it says go down to 77, so it says 3 C's. And looks like the rest are D's. 5 D's. No F's. All right, so that was, we talked before we started the recording. You said you wanted the average of the quizzes, the average of the tests. You wanted A's, B's, C's, D's. We probably need to do the same thing with class number 2. But before we do that, we'd have to put those in order, wouldn't we? And you won't have to deal with this because I've already sorted your columns for you. But if you do pull some data out and you move stuff around, you might want to know how to do this. You highlight the numbers you want to sort. Go to the data, sort. It's going to prompt you to highlight more rows, but we don't want to change the data around that. We just want to sort the ones we've selected. So continue with the current selection, and we want to sort it largest to smallest. Do we have a header? Well, have I selected a header? Let's see. Doesn't look like it. If I had selected the quiz cell, then that would be a header. Okay, sort, done. Same thing with the next column. You can also right-click and sort. You know, there's several ways to do what you want to do. No, we're going to go largest to smallest. All right, and I'm doing this kind of fast because we already did it with class. And see, I'll even copy all this, Control copy, Control paste, and then just change the title to class 2, delete the cells, and then there's just several features, but let's speed this up. A's 1, B's 4, no C's. Bunch of D's. Looks like count 7. And F's would be, and again, this is fictitious data. I made these numbers up so we could analyze them and talk about them. The next test column, we have no A's, but we have 3 B's. So no A's, 3 B's. C's are from 85 to 77. So 3 C's. A bunch of D's, 8 of them. and 6 Fs. All right, so we just did what you said you would do with the data. You would find those pieces of information. And in the table and in looking at the averages, you could probably start to state some things. Looking at class number 1 and their quiz average versus their test average, what fact could you state? 78-ish to 85-ish. Went up a lot, didn't it? 7 or 8 points. When you look at class 2, their quiz average versus their test average didn't go up much. That's stating facts. So in your project, that's the findings section. Findings section, stating facts. If you compared the A's from the quizzes to test in both classes, you might be able to see some trends there. You might think, well, class 1, all those 7 D's and 4 F's, they all went up, didn't they? So that's stating facts, that there were more A's, more B's on the test. Now let's go to the conclusion section. The conclusion section. Could you conclude about class 1 versus class 2? Maybe. You can't tell for sure. It's not definitive, but you analyze it and conclude something. You might could conclude that class 1 studied for their test or prepared a little better for it than class 2. That's you drawing an inference from the data, you drawing a conclusion from it. So do you get the difference? Findings, state facts. State what you see. Conclusion, interpret it for your audience. Interpret what it means. All right, last thing. If you're going to interpret for them that class 1 improved and that they had better A's, they had more A's and more B's on the test than they did quiz, what kind of visual representation would help? In other words, there's a part in your project that says you will be graded on choice of descriptive statistics, which you've chosen average, A's, B's, C's, and D's. Those are good choices for this data. But the other thing you're going to be graded on is your data representation. So what would be a good way? Which kind of graph? A bar, not just a bar graph, but a comparative bar graph. And we looked at that. If you select this data, the wizard for bar graph will just throw that into a bar graph for you. And of course, you could add data labels to the red and the blue. You might want to keep the legend there, right, for the different colors. And then when you're talking about this in your paper, when you're saying that there were more A's and more B's, you can then insert that graph right below that paragraph or right above that paragraph. Right? So this project is going to be a lot like an English paper where you're writing the paragraphs and talking about what you're seeing, but I don't want you to take colored pencils and draw bar graphs. I want you to look professional and be able to get these bar graphs and pie graphs and line graphs or whatever you want and put them in your Word document where they're appropriate. Okay? All right, so that's, we could spend more time going through class 2 and making their comparative bar graph and seeing the same trend where they didn't raise their grade much and whatnot, but I think that's enough for the video's sake. So we'll go ahead and stop that.